Okay, thank you. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining me. This is MIFA's Saving for College presentation. And as I mentioned earlier, I did put the slides in the chat. If you can't see them, I apologize. It's probably my fault. But you will receive a copy of the slides after the event, probably tomorrow, as well as a recording, this recording of the presentation that you always have to refer back to. So having said that, let me go ahead and just start sharing my screen here. Let me start the slideshow. Ooh, there I am. So as I said, this is MIFA's Saving for College presentation. My name is Jonathan Hughes. I'm the Associate Director of College Planning at MEFA. And what that means basically is that I help families in all sort of facets to plan, save, and pay for college. And it says here, I've worked for over 15 years at MEFA. It's actually over 20 years at this point. And throughout that time, I have worked with savings programs specifically for most of that time. And so we'll go over some of the savings programs, but I've helped families to save. I've helped them to use their savings. I have a few savings accounts myself. So I'm a parent who is saving for my child as well. So any savings and talking about savings and getting information out there and really guiding people and advocating for savings is probably my favorite part of what I actually do, because I know how much it does help. I've mentioned this many, many times, but I'll probably say it again before the end of the hour, that of all the folks that I've talked to, all the families throughout the years, nobody has regretted saving. So everybody is very glad that they have saved what they saved. And so I want to thank you for your interest in saving, and the first step, if it is the first step that you've made to come to this webinar and learn more about college savings. A few words about MEFA before I get started. MEFA is the Massachusetts Educational Financing Authority. We're a state authority created by the Massachusetts State Legislature back in 1982. And we have a public service mission to help Massachusetts families, really any families, to plan, save, and pay for college. And so we do that in a variety of ways. We have a lot of tools and calculators and other services on our website. We have a bunch of college guidance experts like myself, who are available to answer any questions you may have on planning, saving, and paying for college for free. So that's a lot of what we do. I mentioned that because we're going to talk about savings today for 45 minutes or so. If you have questions in the following weeks, as I said, you will receive a copy of the presentation. You'll receive a copy of the recording. We are always here to help you. You will have questions throughout the years, throughout the weeks, the months, and years between now and when your child goes to college. So please do not feel shy about reaching out to us. Our information will be at the end, and you'll have my information as well. I can give you that. So please do not feel that you shouldn't be contacting us if you have questions. This is what we're here to do, is to help you folks get through. So what we're going to talk, and I should mention before I get too further in that, especially since we're a pretty small group today, please ask any questions that you want to ask, whether it's something I've addressed that you have questions about or something I haven't said that you have questions on. So if you come in with questions, if you're confused about anything, please use the Q&A function. It's a little bit easier for me to see as I go through if you use the Q&A versus the chat. But I will answer questions as I go. I'll hang out afterwards if you have questions to ask. If I don't answer your question right away, it's probably because I know the answer to that question is coming up. But otherwise, please feel free to ask your questions in the Q&A. So what we're going to talk about today is firstly, why save? So why saving is important and why it's something that will help you. We're going to talk about 2 Massachusetts savings options. These are the MEFA programs, the U Fund, Massachusetts 529 plan, and the UPlan, which is the prepaid tuition program. Now, the best way for you to save is the way that you actually do save. So it's more important that you save as that you have, just the right vehicle and what have you. If you are too busy researching what the right way to save is and it's keeping you from saving, it's not going to help you. So however you can save is better than not saving at all. Having said that, there are a few ways that are specific to saving for college and do have specific benefits when it comes to saving for college. And these are examples of those plans, and we'll talk about those in particular. And then we can talk about strategies for saving. So when people are saving, what are some of the things that they do that help them and what we know help people save? And then finally, and I think this is important, how families pay for post-secondary education. And when I say post-secondary education, I mean anything that may come after high school. So that's going to be college for a lot of folks, but it's not going to be college for everybody. Could be career training, could be certificate training program, could be apprenticeship training. The idea isn't that every child has to go to college, but whatever your child wants to do after high school, it's important to have a plan in place. And so we'll talk about how families actually do pay for that. Okay, so first of all, why save for college? And this is probably, put this right up front because it's probably the most important message that we have in this presentation. And that is there are these myths that prevent people from saving for college. And this has come up a few times this week. The first one, my savings will hurt my financial aid, which is not true. So when you're talking about paying for college, financial aid is a hopefully going to be a big way that people can counteract some of the cost of college. So hopefully you're eligible and receive a good amount of financial aid. Now, financial aid can be granted on 2 bases. The first one being merit. So things like academic scholarships, athletic scholarships. Merit is awarded in recognition of student achievement, not family finances. So savings will obviously have nothing to do with whether or not your child gets a merit scholarship. Now, however, most financial aid in a year is not merit-based, but it is need-based. And so when you get to the point where you're filing your financial aid forms, like the FAFSA or any other forms that you may have to file, what they're going to do is take a look at the family finances and determine how much aid you're eligible to receive. So a lot of people think, well, if I have $10,000 saved for college, they're going to take a look at that and say, well, you have $10,000, so we're not going to give you this $10,000 grant. It doesn't work like that. In fact, when they're asking you to put your information into the financial aid forms and they're looking at how much you have and how much you can pay for college, the weight that savings is given in that calculation is very, very minimal. The vast majority of the weight in those calculations as to how much you can pay for college when they're figuring this out is placed on parent income and not parent asset. So anywhere from 0 to 47% of your adjusted gross income will be looked at as to what you can pay for college for a year. Whereas assets, anywhere from 3 to 5.6%. And this is on the FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid. So, does having money saved affect your eligibility for financial aid? Very minimally, and certainly not anywhere close to the benefit that you would have of actually having the funds saved and to be able to use for college. So that's the first thing. Saving has a very minimal impact on your financial aid. The second thing is it's not worth saving for college if I can't save the entire cost. And, this is definitely something that a lot of families, I think, absorb this message and they shouldn't. In fact, I would talk about when my son was first born, and my colleague said, oh, let's see how much college is going to be for him when he turns 18, and used a future college cost calculator to figure this out. It's one of these things where they say, okay, if tuition keeps going up the rate it's going, in 18 years, this is what it will be. And of course, it was a huge number. And I thought, oh my God, there's no way I can save for that, which is probably true. But I know that most families are eligible for some level of financial aid. The likelihood that I would be asked to pay that full sticker price amount is very, very, very small. So I don't have to save for that entire cost. And so, in fact, anything that you save is something that you don't have to borrow, right? So let's say financial aid takes some of that cost off. Well, then maybe you could save for whatever is left of that balance. Even if you can't, your savings could reduce or eliminate the need to borrow loans. So it's only going to help you. So you maybe not be able to save for the entire cost of a given college, but it is worth it to save what you can. Now, once again, your college savings will only help you. As I said earlier, and I said I was going to repeat it, I've never spoken to anybody who has regretted saving. When you see big sticker prices on the news that it now costs X amount of dollars to go to this particular college, know that they're picking probably the most expensive college in the area, and they're not factoring in financial aid. So you're not going to be expected in all likelihood to have to pay or save for that full amount. In fact, your college savings would give you more educational options, different types of programs, different colleges that perhaps may not have been on your radar or on your horizon if you didn't have college savings. Really, the biggest thing for me, at least when I think about it in my case, is this ability that it may have to reduce or possibly eliminate the need to borrow loans. And as we already said, it has a minimal impact on financial aid eligibility. Now, there's some other benefits that come along with saving for college. We're going to talk a little bit about the Baby Steps program in Massachusetts, which is a seeded 529 account. And this is a child savings account. And these types of programs have popped up with more and more frequency in recent years. So Massachusetts has a program that will seed $50 in for every child born in Massachusetts going forward into a 529 account. The city of Boston has something similar. Rhode Island has something similar. Maine has something similar. So there's this sort of burgeoning field of state and municipal governments creating these accounts and putting money in for children. And with that has come a lot of research into the effect that these accounts and saving for college in a 529 account would have. And so some of the biggest benefits that parents and children see before they even get to the paying for college question is that having funds saved has in a 529 account has an outsized impact on the college attendance and graduation rate for children at all income levels. So this figure here that you see is the low to middle income children who graduate from college by savings account. So with no savings account, no 529 account, that's a 5% graduate college, up from $1 to $499. That goes up 5 times to 25%. So this is important because it's not that you have to have a lot of money saved. Even having below $500 saved vastly increases the attendance and graduation rate for low to middle income children. And over $500, you can see the difference isn't even as pronounced between nothing and below 500. So having money saved for college increases attendance and graduation rate. If a child knows that money is being set aside for them for college after high school, they're more likely to attend and graduate, which is incredible. This is not just the case as we see here for middle class or upper middle class folks. It benefits all income levels. So it has a motivating impact on your child. So that is another reason why I really like advocating for savings and helping people to save for college. Even if it's a little bit of money, it has a huge impact in people's lives. So now that we get to why it's important to save and why you should do it, the two specific options that we're going to be talking about today, the first one being the U Fund, and this is a 529 account. Now, I mentioned 529 accounts when I talked about that research right there. A 529 account is a tax advantaged way to save for college or education. And every state offers their own 529 account. The U Fund is the Massachusetts 529 account. And so basically, this is how the plan works. You open up an account, you put money into the account, and it's invested. It's invested in the market, and it grows. Hopefully the market grows, and it grows with the market without taxes. So it's tax deferred while it's invested. Your money, by the way, in the U Fund is invested by Fidelity Investments. So they handle the investments and they service the actual U Fund account. So if you call up and you want to know what's going on with your U Fund account, you'll be talking with Fidelity. And so we've contracted them to offer this service. So the money is invested in the market, grows in the market without taxes. When it comes time to use the money, you pull the money out. As long as you use it for a qualified educational expense, you pay no taxes on the earnings. And so, of course, then the question becomes, what are qualified educational expenses? Well, there are things like tuition, fees, room and board, books, supplies, and equipment. So there's a lot of costs you can use a 529 plan for. Since this is the Massachusetts 529 account or plan, people sometimes think, do I have to use it at a Massachusetts college? You don't. You can use it at any college in the country. You can even use it at some international colleges if they are set up to take US federal funds. You actually don't even have to use it for college. So if you're going to a vocational training or career training program, as long as the institution itself is set up to take US federal funds, so if you have to file a FAFSA or can borrow federal loans to go there, you can use your 529, your U Fund, and not pay taxes. It's a qualified expense. The combined account maximum is $500,000, meaning your contributions can't exceed that for a student. Usually not a problem for most people. If it is a problem, it's a good problem to have. There's no annual account maintenance fee, and that's important. That means there's no fee that you're going to have to pay out of pocket every year to be part of this program. And there's no minimum investment to get started. And so that's important. I just want to mention that because that means you can open an account with $5, $10, nothing even, and choose to fund it later. And this is, we've made this decision because we do want to open up this savings possibility and world to everybody that we can, to create this culture of saving for college and career. Now, it says here multiple investment options. So this is an investment vehicle, and I mentioned that a few times. So we are not investment professionals. We're not authorized or qualified to give investment advice. I don't know anything about investment personally, but this is where Fidelity can come in and help. So you can talk to Fidelity, call them. They are able to advise you on investing. And if you find, for example, if you set up an account and you want to talk to Fidelity to see if you have invested in a way that makes sense to you, in a way that you're happy with, and you find out that you want to change your investment, you're able to do that as well. So you can enroll online at fidelity.com/ufund, or you can call them right at that number, 800-544-2776. But the online process is how you'd open an account. So if anybody has any questions so far on U fund on 529. A couple of other things I should mention about this. If you have saved and you find that you can't use your 529 funds for a qualified educational expense, there's a few things that you can do. You can transfer the beneficiary. So when you set up a U fund account, you set up an owner. That is the person who's going to be able to direct money out of the account, basically the person in charge of the account, and a beneficiary who is the person you're saving for. So if one child is not able to use the U fund, you can transfer that over to another child. If you have money left over after college and you want to do that, you can do that. The U fund can be used for graduate school as well. If none of these things are an option, you can hold on to these accounts for a very long time. So if you think plans might change, maybe your child doesn't go to college right after high school or doesn't start a program that they can use the U fund for, but you think they might one day, you can hold on to these programs and use them later on. But if it has to be that you have to take the funds out and use them for an ineligible expense, then there are tax consequences associated with that. There's a 10% penalty on the earnings. All of them are assessed on the earnings, not what you put in. So there's a 10% penalty assessed to the earnings, and the earnings would also be taxed at the owner's rate of income. There are three exceptions to the 10% penalty, two of which we don't really want to contemplate, which are death and disability of the student. But the third one is scholarship. So, if you have to withdraw the funds and can't use them because the child got a scholarship for a certain amount, then you're not going to be assessed the 10% penalty on that scholarship amount. But even in those three examples, the earnings will be taxed at the owner's rate of income. So wanted to mention that. And I'll come back to that a little bit later on. But I want to talk about the other program first, which is the UPlan. The UPlan is the prepaid tuition program, and it works in a different way than the U Fund. It allows you to prepay up to 100% of tuition and mandatory fees at participating colleges. And so participating colleges, there are over 70 participating colleges in the program. They're all in Massachusetts, and they represent public and private colleges in Massachusetts. When you put money into the U plan, unlike the U fund, it is not invested in the market. It's invested in general obligation bonds. They're backed by the full faith and credit of the Commonwealth. So it's not subject to market fluctuation in the same way that the U fund is. There are other key differences here. And the first one, as you see here, it requires a $300 minimum to get started. You can start an account throughout the year, much like the U fund. You can open an account online. You can have funds withdrawn automatically from your checking account every month or however you wanted to do it. You can send in a check. You can do a one-time electronic payment to the plan or contribution to the plan. And let's say you wanted to save in the U plan and you set up automatic withdrawal every month from your account. You can set that up with $50 a month or what have you. It doesn't have to be $300 right off the bat. But there is a bond purchase that occurs every year, and this is in August. So what happens then is they're going to take all of the funds that you've contributed throughout the year and use that to buy bonds in August. If that amount of all that you've contributed throughout the year, by the time August 1st rolls around and we're doing our bond purchase, if it doesn't total $300 or more, you won't buy a UPlan bond, but your money will stay in the UPlan account and until it does have that $300, and then it would purchase a bond for the next year, for example, if it did reach that $300 level. So you don't need $300 in contributions right away to get started. But ultimately, by the time we purchase the bond, you'll need to have at least $300 if you want to lock in tuition. So let me talk about what that means. And this is really the heart of the program of locking in tuition or prepaying tuition. You put in a certain amount of money, over $300. Depending on how much money you put in, that's going to buy a percentage of this year's tuition at every participating college in Massachusetts. And so the way that works is, let's say you put in $1,000 throughout the year. Make the math easy on me. So let's say you put in $1,000. Well, that's going to buy 10% of tuition at a college that costs $10,000 this year. Now, you don't have to pick a college up front. You'll get a report every year that shows all of the colleges, their tuitions, what you put in, and what percentage of tuition you have purchased. So you're going to set up an account, put in your money or your frequency, or however much you want to put in every month, or whatever it may be. And you're going to pick a maturity year or maturity years. And what these are is the year that you want the bond that you're investing in to become liquid and to be able to use it. Basically, you want to pick one or more of the years that your child is going to be in college, because this is when you want to use the funds. So let's go back again and say you put in $1,000 this year. That's going to buy 10% of tuition at a college that costs $10,000 this year. Okay, so you get 10% of tuition at that college. So by the time your child goes to college, so if they go to that college and that college is now $20,000, well, then they have 10% of $20,000 or $2,000. So your $1,000 investment became $2,000, because as tuition doubled, so did the value of your investment, or your 10%. And so, as I said, you'll see every year you'll get a tuition report with all the colleges and the percentages of tuition that you have purchased there. So you can see, and every year you can contribute. And so every year you can add to your percentages. And so basically what you're doing is keeping pace with the rise of tuition. So if you paid 100% of tuition at a particular college, let's say you put in $10,000 at that first school, and you put it in for every year that your child is going to be in college. Let's say you're very lucky and you're able to do that. So 10,000, 10,000, 10,000, 10,000, about 100% of tuition for each of the 4 years. By the time the child goes to that college, it's $20,000. Well, you're going to have $20,000 in each year covered, because you purchased 100% of tuition. And so that's what you're guaranteed through the program. Now, of course, the first question that comes up is, what if your child doesn't end up going to one of these participating colleges? If that's the case, much like the U Fund, again, you can transfer beneficiaries. So if you have another sibling or somebody in the family that can use the funds, maybe you can transfer those over. If you don't, you can cash out and get what you put in plus the interest back. Interest accrues at CPI. And so you can do that, and there's no tax consequences for doing that, not for the Commonwealth and not for federal. So if you live outside Massachusetts, you may want to consult with your state laws in that state. But for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and federal, there's no tax consequences for cashing out. So that's the UPlan. Talking a little bit more about expanded uses for 529. There's been legislation in recent years that has expanded the uses of what you can use your 529 money for and not be taxed. So now up to $10,000 can be used to pay for private and public K through 12 tuition. And this is yearly. You can pay for up to $10,000 yearly in expenses related to apprenticeships. And you can take a one-time $10,000 distribution in your U Fund or 529 plan to repay student loans. So these are all things that now fall under qualified expenses. And, in general, since 529 plans were created in the late 90s, there has been generally more expansion and more benefits being added to 529 plans. So hopefully, that's a trend that will continue. But that's been the trend over the past 20 years or so. Baby Steps is something I mentioned earlier, and Baby Steps is a program that we're really excited about. Began on January 1st, 2020. It was an initiative by the incoming treasurer at that point, and still the treasurer, Deborah Goldberg, to offer the first statewide seeded college savings account program for children. And basically how it works is it sets aside $50 in a UFund account for every baby born or adopted in Massachusetts. All they have to do is open an account. The parents would have to, or not, somebody would need to open an account for the child within the first year of that child's life or the first anniversary of their adoption. And if they do that, then they are going to receive $50 in a UFund account through the Baby Steps program. And so, as I said, this is something that began in January 1st, 2020. So we're in our third year of Baby Steps, and very, very excited about it. Very happy to, as I said, really sort of promote college savings and promote this culture of saving and saving for college and career. So if you know somebody who is eligible or may be eligible for Baby Steps, all they would need to do is open a UFund 529 account in the first year of that baby's life or first year of their adoption, and they should have the funds. They don't need to do anything else. So it's something that we are, as I said, very, very happy about. Another thing that we're really happy about that happened recently, there has been an extra incentive to spur saving and saving in a 529 plan or a UPlan specifically. And so what that is that there is a state tax deduction that's now available for Massachusetts savers who pay Massachusetts taxes. And up to $2,000 of your contributions to either your UFund or UPlan can be deducted on your state income taxes if you are a married filer filing jointly. If you're an individual filer, you can deduct up to $1,000 of your contributions on your state income taxes as well. Limits are per filer, not per account. So 2,000 or 1,000 is the max that you're able to deduct, no matter how many accounts you have or what level of contributions you're making. But it's just something that is an extra incentive to save, and I think it's been very successful to get people to do that, and that has been made permanent this year. So we're very happy about that, and it's something to know about if you want to save, or if you are saving and you didn't know, this is something that you can do. Now, do I have any questions so far about anything? Just wanted to pause here really quickly. No, okay, well, don't be shy, put them in if you have them. Okay, so now we're going to talk about strategies for saving. So in general, these are the things that we've found that have helped people to save, that we have spoken to. And so what you see here on the right is a sample gifting page. And this is something that Fidelity has created for UFund savers. You see here, you can set up this page. There's a picture of the child. You can personalize it with the age and the date entering college and what the child wants to be when they grow up at 2 years old. But and you can create this and basically create a link that you can send to family and friends, and they can gift money directly in. So on birthdays, first communion, bar mitzvah, whatever it may be, whatever milestone it is that you're celebrating, you can send that out to, as I said, family and friends. They can gift money directly in, and it's an easy way to do it. But the larger principle, of course, is that you don't have to do this all on your own. You can involve family and friends in the greater community and into doing that. And we know that that is a successful way that people have saved for college. And it's very easy to do that through things like the gifting page, or, I always talk about my aunt. When I would see her, she would give me a check for my son's UFund every time. And I'll just take a picture of it with my phone. They have the mobile deposit. You can put money in that way. People can just send in checks. So it's very easy for people who are not the owners of the account or not the parents to actually put money into the account. That's a good thing to realize. Another great idea is to start saving as early as possible and use time to your advantage. And we'll talk about that in a little bit more detail later on. but it's not just what you're putting away, but it's the interest and the value that's being added to that. So it's definitely worth it to start early, even with a low amount of money, which is frankly what I did. You can start with a goal in mind, and we'll talk about some ways. A lot of people want to know, especially parents of younger children, want to know, how much do I need to put away every month so that college is paid for, at least as much as I can is paid for by the time the child gets to college. That can be tricky to figure out, but we do have some tools for that. Taking advantage of unexpected funds, so windfalls like tax refunds or gifts in some sense. You can take that or some of that, put it into the U fund. Using automatic transfers is really a big one. I mean, we know that people who use automatic transfers, that is having money automatically deducted from their checking account or their bank account or whatever account, so that they never even sort of see it, tend to save more than people who don't do that. And I can testify to that in my own life, where I was saving for about 9 or 10 months before I even realized I was doing it, because my wife had set up the automatic transfer coming out of my account. So very grateful about that. And we already talked about involving your family and friends in the process, and then finally involving your child in the process. So this might be a little bit later, of course, when they get a little bit older, but or not. I mean, sometimes kids like to just see this money is for you to go to college or to go to school, and they like having a bunch of money there, and they like seeing the balance go up. I remember speaking with a financial aid officer from a college who said that she made her daughter save half of everything that she got in gifts, those milestones like birthdays and things like that. Save half of it, it goes into college savings, and then you can do what you want with the rest of it. So and I talked to her later on, and just to see if I could still keep saying this, it was okay if I told that story. And she said yes, and she actually told me that this was a habit that her daughter then just sort of naturally developed throughout her life, is to save half of, or a certain percentage of whatever she got first, which is a great thing to learn. So as a habit, as one that I wish I learned. But so it is possible, because I say that because I think, well, is your child really going to save? Yes, it is possible to do that. Oh, here we're going to talk about how you can estimate what your goal may be. And this is MEFA's college planning tool. So as I said before, it's not unusual for especially new parents to say, I want to pay for my child's college. How much do I need to start putting away every month? So there's a lot. The thing that's difficult about that is there's a lot we just don't know yet. So, we don't know where the child is going to go to college. And as we're going to see soon, different colleges have vastly different costs. We don't know how much financial aid the child might receive when they get to college. You really won't know that for sure until you pretty much get there, the year before and when you file your financial aid forms. So we just don't know those things yet. So it's hard to say you save this amount every month and you should be good to go. But there is a tool on our website, MEFA's college planning tool, and you can create an account, and it's a way to kind of estimate the answers to these questions. And there's a lot more that it does. But this to me is really the heart of it. So what you can do is you can set up an account, create your profile as a family. You can put your child in there. You can put children in there, different accounts for different children. And put in the amount that you have saved, or the amount that you are planning to save every month. You can put in the age of your child, and it will start to estimate. And you can see this graph over here that's rising up. And you say, okay, my child is going to go to college in 2031. It looks like it's going to be here. Well, in that case, you can start to look for colleges, or look for different types of colleges. So like a 4-year private college, or 4-year public college, or a 2-year community college, whatever the different types may be. Or you may be able to, you can search specific colleges, put them in, and it will sort of estimate, use one of those future college cost estimators as to how much tuition the cost might be at that point by the time they go to college. So you'll know basically, what the sticker price is estimated to be. So that's one piece. The other piece is they'll estimate how much, based on your savings, you are likely to have by the time your child gets to college. And then if you want to put your income in, they're going to estimate how much financial aid you may receive. So, you would know then, if you check this example here, you see the cost is estimated to be $59,995, and this is per year by 2031. So $59,995 per year. By the income that we put in, we're eligible for about $7,073 in gift aid. And what gift aid is scholarships and grants. So just money that's just taken off. It's not loans. It's not work study. So it's not something you have to do to earn or you have to pay back. It's just gifted. So you can just take that right off the bill. And then we're estimated to have, in this example, about $32,000. So our shortfall, the amount that we're going to have to figure out how we're going to have to pay, is $20,920. So by that, you'll be able to see, okay, I'm going to have to pay $20,920 the first year. And after that, more, because I'm not going to have that $32,000 saved. So when at this point, you either have to bump up your savings, look for loans to pay the shortfall, start looking at some colleges that have less expensive costs, or start applying for scholarships. These are all other things that you can do. But it gives you an idea of where you are, how far your savings may take you, and what the shortfall might be. So I think it's a really, really great tool. And it's called MEFA's College Planning Tool. It's on our website in the planning section. Oh, and here we come to our question here, the poll question. So I mentioned that we were going to be talking about using time to your advantage and the interest and the value that's assessed on this. And we have this slide on compound interest, which is essentially gaining interest on itself. So, and this will show you sort of the benefit of starting early. We have an example here of Julie. Julie starts saving $50 a month in a 529 account when her child is first born. Jonathan starts saving $100 a month in a 529 account beginning when my child is in second grade. Who will have more money saved by the time their child turns 18? So let me launch this poll here and you guys can guess. I think you probably can guess which way this is going based on the way I framed it. Yes, I'm going to end the poll now, and you are all correct that Julie will have more money than me because she started earlier. So Julie will have, and again, this assumes, this is not where the market is right now, I don't think, but this assumes consistent monthly savings investment return of 7%. And this is generally where we've estimated. We've sort of, consulted with Fidelity for that, and they said that over the long run, this is a good estimate. So can't speak to how the market is now, but that is the guidance that they've given us. So assuming that, Julie is going to have $21,536. She's going to have contributed $10,800, and the interest is almost the same amount. Whereas if I have $100, I'm going to have pretty close. I mean, not too far behind, but $19,798. But $13,200 contributed and about $6,598 in interest. So you can see this. It's a big difference that 7 years results in, even if you're contributing twice what you would have normally. So none of this is to say that if you have a child that is older than a newborn or a very young child that you shouldn't start. You absolutely should. In fact, anything that you save is something that you don't have to borrow, and not everybody starts saving as early as maybe they wanted to. But still, him talking to those parents, and once again, they are not sorry that they did start saving. So so as I said, not to say that if you've waited a little while that you shouldn't, that it's too late. It's not. You should. But to use time to your advantage if you can. Okay, and now we're going to talk about how families actually do pay for college or career training, whatever they do after high school. And this is important, I think, because just to give you a realistic idea of what you may be saving for, and this idea of your cost. And this is all before financial aid is granted. So these are the different types of schools, and different types of schools you're going to see have different costs associated with them. When you see those numbers on the news or in print, it now costs $65,000, $70,000 to go to this college. These are the most expensive colleges, I think, in the area. So those are going to be your four-year private colleges. This information comes from a College Board report, Trends in Student Pricing. And this is a national average. So a four-year private colleges, the total cost national average is $54,880 per year. This includes tuition, fees, room and board, books, supplies, equipment, transportation, living expenses, everything all together. Cost of attendance, four-year private college, $54,880 nationally. So it's good to know that. It's good to know if you reside in Massachusetts or the New England area where there's a lot of private colleges, it's going to be higher than this in all likelihood. So that is something to know. The other thing to know is that based on your circumstances, you may not be paying room and board. You may not be paying the same book, supplies, transportation costs as everybody. So that is something to know. There's a little elasticity to those numbers there. But in general, for a four-year private college, things like Boston University, Boston College, those types of colleges, that's what is meant by four-year private. Now, for four-year public colleges, so your UMass's, UNH, schools like this, it's going to be a difference between whether or not you go to a public college in the state in which you live. If you go to a public college in your state, you're eligible for a discounted tuition rate. So for four-year public colleges for in-state students, the national average there is $26,820 per year. So you can see there's a big difference already between public and private colleges. And here I think Massachusetts is closer to the national average, might be a little bit higher, but closer than in the private realm. Now, if you go outside to a public college outside of your state of residence, you lose that tuition discount. So for out-of-state students, the average cost per year is estimated to be $43,280 per year. Now, vocational schools, so schools that don't grant degrees, but are for career training programs, these are harder to estimate because they're so varied. And there's just so many different types of programs and different places that you can get, career training programs or certificates. So it's harder to estimate than the college cost. Now it says here, less than $33,000 for the entire education. And so that may look high, but again, to note it's for the entire education, not per year. And so once again, it shouldn't be higher than that. That is not taken from the College Board Trends in Student Pricing. So this is from a report called University Community College or Trade School, which makes the most economic sense from an organization called Value Colleges. And this was really the best info that I could find on this question. But I think it's important to note that it's important to include along with the colleges as well as to let you know what it may cost less than $33,000 for the entire education. And as I said, there's going to be a huge variance there in costs. And then finally, two-year public community colleges. These are typically the least expensive options, $9,470 per year without counting room and board. Sometimes room and board is counted, and room and board would make this, another $10,000 or so. At least many public community colleges, though, and I think every community college in Massachusetts is a commuter college, so it doesn't have dorms, so there aren't going to be room and board costs associated with it. So those are typically, as I said, the least expensive option. So you can see there that there is a huge variance in terms of cost associated with different types of college. So definitely not as monolithic as college now costs $70,000 a year. It's a huge variety in pricing. Secondly, of course, as I mentioned, the pricing even within these schools, it's going to depend at least somewhat on your circumstances. So, taking $10,000 out or so for room and board is gonna be a big difference if you're not living on campus. But the biggest thing here also is that we don't talk about financial aid yet. This is all before financial aid. So to talk about financial aid, first thing that you should know is that there's a lot of financial aid that's granted every year. So in the year 2019-2020, there was $183.8 billion granted in financial aid. And that is not an anomaly. This is basically where it's been for the last several years, is in the $180 billion realm or so. And so that's a lot of aid. And so it can be granted by the federal government, the state government, and the colleges and universities themselves. And as I said before, it's granted based on two metrics: merit-based aid. So this is academic, athletic scholarships, et cetera, things that are based on student achievement, or need-based financial aid. Most of this $183 billion is need-based. Most merit-based aid comes from the colleges. The federal government doesn't offer any merit-based aid programs. The state of Massachusetts, for example, does offer a few, but most of what they grant is need-based. So scholarships, merit scholarships, come typically from colleges and universities and from outside agencies like local businesses or organizations, or national corporations or organizations as well. But there's a lot of aid that's granted. And as I said before, most families are going to be eligible for some level of financial aid. So as to how folks actually do pay, the first thing that is going to happen is that you're going to apply for financial aid. They're going to apply to their colleges. They're going to get their admissions back from their colleges and get their financial aid offers. So you get a bill at the college. The first thing that goes is that financial aid, and then you've got a remaining bill after the fact. And once that happens, there's really only three avenues that you can use to pay that: past income, meaning anything that you've saved, so your savings, any sort of assets, maybe even gifts or so from family members. That goes in there. Present income, meaning your salary when you're going to college or when your child is going to college. Now, I don't know many, if anybody really, who can pay the full cost out of what they have left over from their salary every month. It is worth it to pay what you can out of pocket, though. And a good thing to look into is monthly payment plans. Colleges typically offer these through outside providers. You can sign up for a monthly payment plan, and whatever you can afford every month, you can set that as your payment, and that will go against tuition. So if you can pay $300 every month and sign up for a 10-month monthly payment plan, that's going to be $3,000 that you're paying against tuition, which is a good thing to do, because after financial aid, after using savings, after your present income of your salary through a monthly payment plan, the only thing left is your future income or loans, right? So the idea is to use all these other avenues before you get to borrowing. And the thing I want to say about borrowing basically is that students, for the most part, so the way we talk about student loans, many people just assume that students can borrow whatever they might need for college on their own, as long as they promise to pay it back after they leave college. And that's really not the case. They can do this with federal loans, but those have loan limits associated with them. So anywhere from $5,500 to $7,500 for the most part is what undergraduates can borrow. And it's that limit is set every year that they go to college. And that's already part of the financial aid offer. So that's already counted. Anything that they may get after that is going to have to be credit approved. And it's going to be approved on the basis of credit score. And most students just do not have the credit required to be approved for these loans without a co-applicant. So typically that means a parent, not always, but typically. And so that parent or that aunt or whoever it might be is equally responsible to repay that loan along with the student co-applicant. So this is something that, is something that you should know when you're figuring out how much you can pay before you start to borrow. Because if you're a parent and you're looking at borrowing, that monthly payment is going to be your monthly payment on that private student loan just as much as it is the students. So it is worth it to pay what you can now, and it's kind of stretch every dollar now to see what you can pay so that you don't have to borrow and pay interest for the next 10 or 15 years, or paying that monthly, keeping that monthly payment that you're paying on that loan low. So for next steps, you can start saving. That's probably the best thing that you can do. If you are saving already, you can continue saving. Talk to your child about college. Use our online tools and learn more about college costs at MEFA.org. If you haven't signed up for MEFA emails, you can do that, and we'll send you 1 or 2 a month based on the age of your child. So savings emails for parents of younger children, parents of older children might get some admissions or financial aid information. You can look and see what webinars we have and other events that we might have coming up. Follow us on social media. This is where we post a lot of scholarship opportunities. So we are contacted by scholarship organizations fairly regularly asking us to promote their scholarship, and this is where we do it. So this is our social media information. And other than that, you should be receiving this recording in the coming days. And if you have any questions, this is our contact information, and please use it. If you have any questions, I'll hang around here for a little while to answer them. And I think I'll stop the recording.